All right, guys, we are in business. I love the energy in the room tonight. Shout out to everyone on the replay. I'm getting ready to share my screen. And tonight we are going to talk about how to get started with podcasting. So, how to start podcasting with no prior experience. I am your host tonight, Nicaila Matthews-Okome. I also host the Side Hustle Pro podcast. If you haven't listened, make sure you go ahead and listen to episodes. So let me know about you now. Let me know who's here, who's in the building. I'd love to know which one are you? Let me know 1, 2, or 3. Have you been thinking about starting a podcast for a while, but you're kind of overwhelmed with how to start? Or are you number 2? You and your friends have a podcast idea and you want to make sure you do it right? You just want to make sure you know everything you need to know to make sure it's successful. Or what about number 3? You have already started your podcast and you're getting ready to start. You've already gotten it in motion. Make sure you're being strategic, or maybe even you've hit a plateau and you want to figure out how to actually just make this thing get more listeners and get more downloads. So let me see who's in the building. All right. I've seen 1, 2s, and 3s, but I'm seeing a lot of 1s and 2s. Okay. Some 3s. All right. So you're all in the right place. I'm excited to chat with all of you guys. So I remember being in, number 1, I remember being in number 3 and just trying to figure it all out. So here's what we're going to do. Okay. My goal for tonight is to teach you my tips, how to start podcasting with no prior experience. I want to walk you through how to set your podcast goals, how to narrow down your podcast topic, and then how to determine who your target listener is, and then stand out in podcasting. So this piece is really, really important. You really have to know who your listener is in order to be successful in podcasting, because you are going to be curating content for this listener. So you need to know something about them. And I'll also be sharing how you can work with me. So you can get coaching from me inside of my Podcast Moguls program if that is of interest to you. So I'll share a little bit about that because I know a lot of you are interested in that. So make sure you stay until the end because I will be, number 1, doing Q&A. So you'll get all your questions answered. And also I got some bonuses. For you. So please stick around. First of all, I have a free Libsyn promo code where you can start hosting your podcast for the first month and a half for free on Libsyn. I still use Libsyn as my host today. And then also I want to share with you again some bonuses if you choose to join Podcast Moguls. So let me share some background. All right. If you've come across me recently, it might look like lights, camera, action, magazines. Like I've always been doing like all this glamorous stuff, but it definitely has not been that way. Okay. I started out with a microphone in my living room, later moved to my bedroom. It was my side hustle. And even before that, I didn't know what I was doing with my life, y'all. So let me tell you the real story of how I got into podcasting. So first of all, this was me in 2015. At that moment, I was graduating from the University of Michigan Law School of Business with my Master's of Business Administration, my MBA, with no job. Okay, I did not know what I was going to do. That smile was masking a whole bunch of anxiety. At this moment, I was getting ready to move back to DC to live with my boyfriend, now husband, and I didn't have any income. And I felt pretty ashamed about that. That's not a reason why you go to grad school, right? So I decided that I wasn't going to dwell on it, though. I'm not even going to dwell on that story. That's how much I don't believe in dwelling on those low moments. So I was unemployed, but I said, you know what? Let me start doing things that I'm good at while I figure out what I'm going to do next. One of those things was writing and blogging, social media. I said, let me pick that back up because I had completely just ignored that while I was in grad school. And at that point, 2015, I don't know how many of you guys have been following blogs and podcasts for a while, but at that point, that whole movement of building your personal brand became a thing, at least for me. And I said, okay, I want to build my personal brand. That's how I'm going to get hired. If employers can see that I'm a marketing pro and I'm just so good at this social media marketing landscape. So let me start doing that. I wasn't really sure what that entailed, though. So like many of you, when I did not know something, I went and I looked to people who were further ahead of me in the journey to learn from them. So I started following online branding coaches and I started blogging more. So here pictured are some of the first two people whose programs that I invested in. So one was Amy Porterfield, another was Maya Elias. So started learning more about that, kept blogging, and I started to kind of realize that my blog was moving in a certain direction. So it's okay if your content starts out broad. I will try to help you tonight to narrow that down a bit. But even when you narrow it down, sometimes you're just a little confused. And I was too. When I started my blog, first of all, it was called Kayla K Speaks. Just a play on words. Like most people, I thought that was cute to like come up with a name that was a play on words. And as I was writing that blog, I was writing about everything under the sun, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of tech news, a little bit of interviews with people who worked in like tech companies like Google and Facebook. And then finally, I started to see a trend. I started to really enjoy sharing the stories of Black women side hustlers and entrepreneurs. And so for me, once I spotted that trend and I spotted what really, really, just made me feel alive and what I really loved creating, that's when the idea for my podcast, Side Hustle Pro, was born. So Side Hustle Pro is all about Black women business owners who started out as side hustlers. And by that point, when I finally took my blog from blog to podcast, I had gotten a job by that point. That blog helped me get a job. I had that on my resume. I did exactly what I wanted to do, which was show my employer that, hey, I know how to use social media to market. But I also realized that, hey, I love this world of podcasting and I want to keep this as a side hustle. I don't know where this will lead me. It's not making me any money, but I feel like if I continue doing this, based on the response that I've seen, I really think that this can go somewhere as well. So by day, I worked full-time at NPR, where I led the digital marketing for, ironically, podcasts. So some of your favorite podcasts, like How I Built This, Code Switch, and many more. So by day, I was doing that. And then by night, I was doing my own podcast. So all of you, I'm sure, are probably side hustlers and you're trying to figure out how you can fit that into your life. We can talk about that as well. While I was fitting all this into my life, I started studying how to make money through podcasting. Give me a 5 in the chat if you are interested in making money from your side hustle. Like if you love side hustling, you kind of want to monetize at some point, right? So I had that same feeling. People raising their hands. Yeah, I had that same motivation. I was like, it would be nice if this, brought in some extra cash. So I started to look to where I could invest, and I couldn't find anyone who was teaching what I teach now, which is a podcast accelerator, which teaches you from A to Z, like how to get started and how to monetize. Couldn't find that, but what I did find was a 2-day event sponsorship intensive. So what that was a event a 2-day workshop where the host talks about how she got money from sponsors to put on events like conferences and things like that. And it wasn't even podcasting specific, but again, I knew I could learn from this person how to pitch sponsors, which is what I wanted to do for my show. I thought there'd be some transferable skills there, and there sure were. So 6 months after launching my podcast, I pitched my first sponsor cold. Okay, meaning I didn't know anyone at the company. The customer service emails that are usually on a website, that's who I was pitching. I was pitching those things nonstop. But when that very first person, that very first company that I sent an email to responded and talks began. And from that conversation, I earned my first $4,000 podcast sponsorship contract. All right. Now, because of that, and because I started monetizing, and because I had consistent revenue streams and savings, in 2017, I was able to quit my job to podcast full time. And I have been working for myself, podcasting full time since then. So hard work pays off, consistent work in podcasting pays off. And in 2022, Side Hustle Pro was inducted into the Podcast Hall of Same. I mean, this was such a surreal moment for me, especially being presented by Libsyn, where I started hosting my podcast. Like, how rewarding and fulfilling. But I want to tell you guys that it's been a long road and a lot of things that I had to learn. And I wish I knew in the beginning that probably would have helped me get here faster, are what I want to share with you tonight, because I think there's a lot of opportunity in podcasting and there's a lot of untapped opportunity. And if you go to any podcasting chart, you will see that there is an opportunity for diverse voices to really make their mark. And so I feel that's my mission. And that's what I want to do in life, is to help more of us to create successful podcasts. And not only that, but to make an impact on the world. My show has made an impact and is making an impact. And I know that all of you and all of the shows that you want to start will make an impact too. So podcasting took me from graduating with no job and no money to the Podcast Hall of Fame and money. I make the money now. So I want to see where it can take you. I'm passionate about giving you the keys to launch your podcast and reap the benefits of this powerful platform. You can use podcasting to do anything you want to do. So let's break it down to some steps, all right? So get ready to start screenshotting, writing, whatever you need to do. Let's start with first things first. So step number one is you want to set your podcast goals. If you're here and you've already started podcasting, or you and the homies started thinking through some things, chances are that you may have kind of rushed in an excited moment. We all kind of start doing things when we're really, really excited. But then if you're having like a down day or life gets hectic, then you might just start kind of like going through the motions, and you might not even have a clear sense of direction of where you're going. And you need to have that clear sense of direction, because again, this is most likely a side hustle. Side hustles, in order for them to be successful, need to be taken seriously. And that starts with goals. So what's your why? One of my whys, like I shared with many of you via email, is I wanted to have these conversations. I enjoyed the connection and the networking that I was able to do by having these conversations, right? Reaching out to someone for an interview, if an interview-based podcast is your thing, is a great way to build your network, because it's not like you're saying, hey, can I pick your brain? So there were so many whys in there. And of course, I also wanted Black women to see that, yes, there is a different pathway to entrepreneurship. If you're not the type like me who wants to quit your job, move to Silicon Valley, and be broke while you work on a business that's not making you money, if you actually want to make money, be able to pay your bills and travel, do your mani-pedis, whatever you want to do, like I did, then here is another pathway to entrepreneurship that I wish more people would talk about. So that was my why. Another thing you have to think about is that done is better than perfect, okay? Scroll on back to the first episodes of Side Hustle Pro. Do yourself, in some spare time, go to sidehustlepro.co, scroll back to the very first episodes. I have not changed those show notes. You will see like graphics that I created that are ugly. Some of the links don't work anymore. Like, what's there? Okay, done is better than perfect. And if I had waited until I was Nikayla, who had her website redesigned in 2019, 3 years in and all that stuff, like I wouldn't be here, because it took me 3 years to even get a professional website. It took me years to do the things that you're seeing today. So please remember to not be comparing or not expecting your podcast on day one to look like podcasts that have been around for 10 years. Most of your favorite podcasts have been around for 5+ years. You cannot use them as your baseline or foundation, okay? And you need to set a long-term goal. If you launch without setting a long-term goal, when you see your first week or month of downloads, you might get discouraged. You might say, oh my goodness, like I just put in hours on this and only X amount of people listen. Oh no. But if you set a long-term goal that says, I am going to podcast, I'm going to release a podcast once a week, every week this year, then all you're doing is working to make your content better, get into that rhythm of podcasting so you get faster and better at it, and then hit that milestone week after week, because before you know it, you have 52 episodes under your belt. And the 50-second episode is going to be 10, 20 times better than that first episode. So this is what you want to do when you start out, okay? Set that long-term goal. And remember, your job is to tell a story that no one else can tell. It's not to reinvent the wheel. It's not to come up with something, people have never heard of, but it's to tell a story that no one else can tell. And that really starts with your secret sauce. So there's a reason why I start this masterclass by sharing my story, because that's a story no one else can tell. No one else knows my story. That's my secret sauce, like coming from being ashamed of something to making it work in my favor, right? So everything that you think is an insecurity or a fault, anything like that, I want you to spend some time really looking at that and flipping it and seeing how it's actually your superpower, how it's actually your secret sauce. Flip that, okay? And start talking about that. Introduce yourself, tell people about this, because I bet you that there are people out there who want to connect with you simply because they also share a similar experience. So that's how you start to set your podcast goals. It's really, really important before you do anything in podcasting that you have some goals and you have that groundwork. So let me know in the chat, put goals in the chat if you have started your goals, if you have ever thought through some things like that, like setting a long-term goal, thinking about your secret sauce, all of that stuff. Put goals in the chat if you have. Or if you're going to. All right, Tiffany, you started with your goals. Ariel, Nick, hey, Nick. Tia, goals. All right, I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Okay, so let's talk about narrowing down your podcast topic. I love talking about this because so many of us start out and we want to talk about so much, right? When it comes to podcasting, of course, so many different things. And of course, you can talk about so many different things, but it's not your job to touch on everything. It's your job to get really good and talking about one particular topic. So people get a little bit confused with this. So I'm going to clarify a little bit as well about what I mean by one topic. But first of all, let's talk about what I mean by how you go about selecting your topic, because you might be wondering that, like, how do I go about selecting just one topic? So there are a couple of questions that I want you to think through. So think through these questions, okay? And you can screenshot this if you need to. So go ahead and screenshot this and tag me as you do. So tag me at Side Hustle Pro Instagram, Side Hustle Pro Podcast on TikTok, and let's talk through these. So number one, what would you talk about if you were not making any money? Because again, on day one, you're not going to be making any money. Number two, what are you passionate about? Number three, what do you have a strong opinion on? Number four, what do you have unanswered questions about? Number five, what would you say is your expertise? And number six, what do people always ask your advice about? Number seven, who do you want to impact? And then number eight, what do you want to be known for? The reason why these questions are so important is they start to reveal and give you signs and point you in the direction of what you really need to be talking about. So what you would talk about if you were not making money long-term, okay, for a year straight, what would you talk about? What are you passionate about? You can have multiple answers to this, by the way. Like, this is just the beginning. You start broad here. You throw everything out there, every single thing that you might talk about, every single thing that you're passionate about. What do you have a strong opinion on? And then when you get to number five, your expertise does not have to look like a resume expertise, okay? So a lot of times people think, it has to be, oh, I studied accounting, so my expertise is accounting. Actually, your expertise could be something like, I am, and this applies to me, so I am very curious. And that's a nice way to put it. I really am nosy, y'all. I'm very, very nosy, and I'm proud of that, because that nosiness makes me a great interviewer, because I think of the questions that other people didn't even know they wanted answered, but they're glad that I asked that question. So that's what I mean by expertise. Like, what are those like quirks about you that just no one else can do quite like you? And brag on yourself. Really, this requires you to truly, truly believe in yourself. All right. So then after you write down the answers to these questions, start to write down your list of topics that came about from the answers that you just wrote down. And then I want you to narrow it down to 1 to 3 ideas. This part might be a little bit harder for you, but here's what can help you with narrowing it down. Only circle things that you can see yourself. And let me just go back to that for a second. When you narrow it down to 1 to 3 ideas, again, only circle things that you would want to talk about for up to a year, and the things that have longevity. Then only circle things that, again, you would talk about if no one was paying you for a while. And then, of course, circle things that you can think of a million ways to talk about and you'd still find it interesting. So step 2 after that is when you're going to conduct market research. That's a, marketing term to basically mean you're going to look things up, right? You're going to Google, you're going to open up your podcast apps, whether on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and you're going to start to put in those topics that you are interested in talking about. And you're going to see who else is doing it. What are they talking about? So identify 5 to 10 other podcasts that talk about your topics. So when I started Side Hustle Pro, there were lots of side hustling podcasts. Again, none that had the lens that I wanted to take. So you too are going to find out, you're going to start to research and make some distinction between what's currently being covered on those podcasts versus what you want to cover. So write down what themes are covered in the different episodes. You have to check out an episode or two. You have to listen to these things and write down, what are they not talking about? Okay. What will you cover that they don't? So a lot of the side hustle podcasts that I listened to and I did my research on, they talked about side hustles, that were like quick money grabs or just things that you did as hobbies that you never had any intention of making a long-term thing. And what I wanted to cover that they didn't was side hustling as a path to entrepreneurship, side hustling as a path to building a long-term business. And that is what I knew would be my show's standout point. And that's how you stand out in podcasting. You figure out what it is that you're going to cover that they will not. All right, I was just dipping into the chat for a little bit. I couldn't help myself, y'all, but let's get into number 3. So step 3 in this process is, again, determining your unique lane, really cementing that. So what can you talk about that no one else can? Why are you the perfect person to tackle this subject? And if I use myself as an example, again, I can talk about my journey of being afraid of the entrepreneurship path, being afraid of building a business because I didn't see myself in the narrative that was constantly pushed of these like bros that would go out and live 12 deep in a dorm style apartment while they wore black t-shirts every day to build these tech businesses. That was the picture of entrepreneurship that was constantly pushed at the time when I launched my show. I was like, that's not me. So I need to talk about this other type of entrepreneur that I'm not seeing enough of. And I was the perfect person to talk about this because I was experiencing it. I was experiencing the doubt that came from not seeing myself reflected in the narrative. Similarly, what can you talk about that no one else can? And why are you the perfect person to talk about this? Your answers to this can be different than mine. Actually, they should be different than mine. So do not be worried if your answers are different than mine. Remember too that you might be the perfect person because you're nosy and you're going to ask the questions. You might be the perfect person because you're an introvert or an extrovert. Whatever it is, write that down because that is going to help you to cement your unique lane. All right. And then step 4 is to evaluate if your idea is a hit topic. You want your show to be a hit topic, okay? You can't always control what happens once you launch, but what you can control is setting yourself up for success to be a hit. So how do you know if you have a hit topic? Well, first of all, make sure it hits all the letters in hit. So it has to have an audience. Okay, if you see that there are shows about your topic, that is okay. You want there to be an audience. If there's no audience, that's a red flag. You should not be creating a lane, okay? There should be people out there already craving your type of content and your topic, but you're going to take a unique spin on it. So then you have to make sure your unique spin is interesting and intentional. Okay. You're taking an intentional approach to this topic. And then you have to make sure it tackles new ground. So again, that's where we're weaving in what's missing from those other podcasts right now. So that's how you evaluate if you have a hit topic. It has to check all these boxes. Has an audience, it's interesting and intentional, and it tackles new ground. And then step 5 is evaluating the longevity of your topic. I touched on this briefly, but it's so important. I have to bring it back in, y'all. So what I mean by evaluating the longevity of your topic is, will you be able to produce multiple episodes about the same topic? So if this were a TV show, how many seasons would it have? Would it end after one? Would you run out of steam? Would you say, I literally don't know what else to talk about? Like, this was like a hot topic of the moment in pop culture, and now like no one's talking about this. Or is this based on something deeper than that, where you can continue to talk about it long-term and produce episodes long-term? So let's do a quick check-in. Like, I was trying to check into the chat. I was so curious what's going on. So let me know with a yes if this is helpful. Let's go through all this. All right. So someone's saying, what's step 3? Remember, I will be sending out the replay if you missed anything. Antoinette, you said you're nosy too. All right. I'm seeing so many yeses. Love it, love it, love it, you guys. All right. So now let's get into step 3. So step 3 that I want to talk about in tonight's class is determining who your target listener is. You guys, this is so important. This is so important that I pull this piece from the actual Podcast Moguls course. I go into this at length inside of Podcast Moguls because this is how I grew the Side Hustle Pro podcast. I understood that I needed to be talking to a specific person. And I just needed to create content for that person. I had on laser beams focused on this person. It didn't matter what anybody else wanted. As long as I'm focused on this person, my content is growing because this person is sharing it with their friends, and that person is sharing it with their friends because your person knows more and more people like themselves who want this kind of content. And that is how my show took off so well. So what I did was I really iron down who is my target listener. So your target listener is your ideal listener. That is your diehard fan. That's your podcast ambassador who will rave about your podcast to others. Okay. This is your person, and they're more than their age and their occupation. You often see these if you just Google like target listener and you start seeing like demographic bullet points, but they're more than that. Okay. They have goals, they have challenges, they have interests, and they have dreams. So we don't have time for it tonight, but inside of Podcast Moguls, what you do, and you can do this tonight, okay, is you're going to have to map out, kind of write out who you think your target listener is. And then you're going to have to reach out to people who match that profile in your life, in your networks, in Facebook groups, wherever you can come across them, and get some time on the phone with them. And that's how you're going to start to understand their goals, their challenges, their interests, and their dreams. And this might sound painstaking and hard. It's not. It's actually not, because this few hours of your life, guess what's going to happen? Once you have this information, you can take this and run with it. You can find and identify your target person across social media platforms. Once you identify them across social media platforms, you can bring them into your world via an email list, and you can stay connected with them. Every time an episode drops, you'll be able to stay connected with them. And that is how your show grows. So when you know your target listener, then you know what content to discuss on your podcast. Your content is their solution, okay? Your content is their solution. Your podcast, fun fact, your podcast is not about you. Your podcast is about the person listening. So, like I said, step 1 is you're going to get on the phone with 5 to 10 people who match, like you're going to write down a little paragraph about who you think this person is. Then you're going to get on the phone with 5 to 10 people who match that profile. And you start with some basic questions like, hey, what's your name? Well, of course, you're going to know their name, but for formality, you're going to keep track of this data in this kind of format. So what's their name? Where do they work? Where do they want to work? What do they want to be when they grow up? Where do they live? What do they do after work and on the weekends? Where do they get their news? What other podcasts do they listen to? What TV shows do they watch? Who do they admire? And you're going to make note of their answers, okay? Then you're going to write a more detailed profile of your target listener. Now that you have these responses, you can clean up things that you assumed that were wrong. You can go into depth about things that you might have thought and that you confirmed were true, and so forth. So remember that when you know who your target listener is, you can serve them. So then you know what content to discuss on your podcast, and you also know where to find your listener on social media. So there's a reason you're going to ask them things like, what other podcasts do they listen to? What TV shows do they watch? Who do they admire? Who do they follow? And all those things. And these questions are just a sample, like add in your own to get the richest picture you can of them. So the reason why you ask them these things is because that helps you to know where they're hanging out on social media, because you're going to go find them. You're going to go network with them on social media, because that is how your show grows. So I'm going to share with you a Podcast Moguls case study. So I shared that I teach this inside of the course. And once people start doing this, they really, really, really see growth. So here is how to find your target listener using Instagram. So after you've identified who your user is, your perfect listener is, then you're going to find these people across social platforms. And Instagram is one that you can start with. So this is Ashley of the Stacks in the City podcast. She's a Podcast Moguls alum, and she used the Side Hustle Pro OMG formula to gain her first 1,000 downloads. So OMG, each letter stands for the step in the process. So step one is to obsessively audit. That means that you are going to make note of the content that your target listener follows, from the profiles they follow to the hashtags they follow, everything. And you're going to make note of what kind of content does well. And don't worry, it's not just reels, okay? Like everyone feels like they're so intimidated by reels these days. Pay close attention to what type of content is doing well, whether it's posts with like multiple images or it's like infographics. You can find, the great thing is that people now follow hashtags, and that is really insightful when you really do a deep dive on what people are following as far as hashtags, your people. So this is what Ashley did. She started with obsessively auditing. Like, she has a show about stacks, aka money, finance, business. So she started to obsessively audit that content and the people who were following that content and the people who her perfect listener follows. And that's how she began understanding how to make friends. So the M in OMG stands for making friends. So you know how we go to networking events, right? Or, after work events or any kind of event to socialize, make new people, network. You can do the same thing on social media. And people don't realize this. So I've always treated social media like real life networking, social media networking like real life networking. So I would make friends. There are people who match the target listener that I have identified, and I know it because I know who this person follows and what kind of content they like. And so I'm able to identify people who look like her. So my target listener is Janelle. I've mapped out this whole profile of her, and I know who she follows. I know what she's doing. So I started to introduce myself to Janelle and other Janelles by following her on Instagram. And thoughtful follows is what I encourage with the M in OMG, meaning you will engage with these people's content. And when they come back to your profile after you not only follow them, but you start liking and engaging with their content, they'll realize like, hey, wait, Side Hustle Pro, that's interesting. Like, I side hustle. Wait, there's a podcast about this. Oh, it features women who look like me. And it goes from there with people following me, following my Side Hustle Pro Instagram page. And that's how I started to grow my Side Hustle Pro Instagram page, which then makes people aware every time I drop an episode, so they tune in. So that's how you start that process. And then G in OMG is go over the data. Data is everything, you guys. Everything we throw out there and test, not everything is going to work. So that means that every week, you're going to start a business profile, first of all, so you can see your insights using a business or a creator profile on Instagram. And every week you can go in and you can see where people are tuning in from, the content that performs the best, the activity that's been going on your page, when your followers are most active, so you can plan when you're going to post what, so it does the best and it has the best chance of being seen by the most people. And you're going to use that data to inform next week. Because if you don't learn from what happened the following week, then you can't get better. So that is what you do with the G in OMG. So here's what happened as a result for Ashley. So she went from having 758 to 1,216 Instagram followers in less than 8 weeks in Podcast Moguls. This wasn't like, just something that happened and took months and months and months. Less than 8 weeks. If any of you have ever tried to manually grow your profile on Instagram, you know that this can take so long, but with this process, it's sped up. And if that still sounds like a little bit to you, then consider that Stacks in the City went from 300 monthly downloads to 1,400 monthly downloads in less than 8 weeks after she started implementing the OMG process. So in case you're not doing the math on that, that is a 4x jump, you guys, almost a 5x jump. So let me know if you would like that for your own show, because that is what can happen with what we teach and emphasize inside of Podcast Moguls. So speaking of that, I'm going to share with you a screenshot from something that happened in today's, someone posted that in our private community today. But before I show you that, let me just share why getting in front of the right followers is so important, because I don't want this to get lost in the shuffle. Okay. This is not about growing followers and just having followers for followers' sake. The reason why implementing the marketing strategies that I teach you is so important is because as your followers grow, so do your downloads. The goal is brand awareness and exposure. So that means you have to grow your brand and you have to increase opportunities for exposure to your podcast in order for your downloads to grow. And so that's what you have to do. So here's what another Podcast Mogul student wrote in today's, in our private community today. So she wrote, wanted to celebrate. I'm about 12 episodes in and reached a milestone of over 1,000 IAB downloads. My stats are from Libsyn. Not sure how these stats compare to other podcasts, but for me, it's a win. And that's so true. It doesn't matter what anyone else's podcast is doing. You have to run your own race. But she says, thanks so much to Kayla for your guidance in getting me started. So this is someone who is just getting started. 12 episodes in is not that many episodes in. So the average podcaster never crosses the 1,000 download mark, you guys. Can you believe that? And then most people give up because they don't even reach even 500 downloads. But I'm here to show you like what you need to do to actually be growing your audience and growing the brand of your podcast so that you can get those downloads. Because those downloads are going to help you make money. So as your downloads grow, so do your opportunities to position yourself as an expert, land sponsors, and make money from your show. So when I asked who was interested in making money from their side hustle, a lot of you said yes, right? So the thing with podcasting is you can use podcasting to do anything you want to do. You don't have to make money directly from your show. You can use it to make money from your business. You can use it to launch another business. And that's what Ashley did. So she landed in the top business charts on Apple Podcasts, again, after implementing OMG. And because of the Stacks in the City platform, she expanded her personal brand and income generating opportunities beyond podcasting. So she is a real estate investor at her young age. I feel like she just crossed the 30 threshold, and she has multiple properties in high demand areas like DC and Baltimore. And so because of what she shared on her podcast about all of her investing and learnings as a young person, people wanted to know more and more. They want to learn from her. And because she has a podcast and she has that platform to share with people who she doesn't even know, now she's able to charge people for her workshops and for her information that she's learned through trial and error, through actually being out there house hunting and working with contractors. And now she charges a nominal fee and shares that information. And it's all because of the brand that she built and the platform that she built through podcasting. So again, you can do whatever you want with podcasting. So let me know if you'd like me to show you a little bit more step-by-step how to launch and grow your podcast so you can make a bigger impact and generate more revenue. Put launch in the chat if that would be of interest to you. I know that I'm trying to cover so much, you guys. Andrea says, thank you so much for this info. You're so welcome. All right, launch. So let's touch a little bit on this because I know I can only cover so much. I know you guys are interested in like soaking up as much info as I can give you tonight. So let's go over this as well before we leave tonight, before we get into Q&A. So first of all, I know that you guys, you might be in a lot of different headspaces right now. So right now you might feel scattered. You want to launch and grow your podcast, but your strategy feels all over the place, right? Or you might feel stuck because your podcast is not growing fast enough or getting enough downloads. And you know that the lack of a proven blueprint is really what's holding you back, right? That is it. Or you might feel determined. You might have come here with that determined mindset, like, I know the value of having a powerful platform like a regular podcast, and you're ready to do what it takes to grow it. Okay. So you might be in one of those three camps. You have two options at this stage. Option one is you can keep trying to DIY your podcast with tips gathered all over social media and YouTube. Nothing wrong with that, right? Everyone, you have to do what works best for you. But I will say that what's hard about that is with option one, you don't know who has the expertise and the right, point blank, to share this information. Like, you don't know people's stats, you don't know what they have achieved. And so I can share with you, what I've achieved, like over 8 million downloads, podcast Hall of Fame, quit my job 2017, living full-time off my podcasting income for the last 5 years and counting. Like, these are the stats that I can share and more. And so I'm qualified to teach you some things. So option two is you can decide to make podcasting a priority and use my proven roadmap through my Podcast Moguls course that tells you exactly where to start and exactly what steps to take. So I want to share with you guys that you're invited to join me inside of Podcast Moguls. And I want to share with you a little bit more of what's actually inside of Podcast Moguls. So Podcast Moguls is an accelerator program that teaches my proven and effective marketing strategies to podcasters like yourself who want to launch your show, increase your downloads, grow your podcast audience, and monetize your podcast. And inside of Podcast Moguls, here's what you'll learn. So this is a walkthrough of the actual modules and more. So first of all, we're going to go over the equipment to use, how to record, how to edit, how to get set up and post your podcast to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more, and YouTube if you want to do that as well, because I now publish on YouTube. Then we'll talk about developing your podcast process. All right. I teach you the actual workflow that I use. I teach you how to pitch guests that you don't even know and land them on your show. And again, how to record and edit. I use a super user-friendly walkthrough. I teach you how to refine your podcast topic and position your show for launch. So we'll dive deeper into this process of refining, narrowing the topic, making it a really strong hit topic. Then, of course, how to pitch and land any guest for your show, how to market your show. So how to market using Instagram and Facebook ads, and then how to grow your email list. So we get into Facebook and IG ads 101. And all of this leads up to how to position your show for monetization. I show you exactly what you need to have in place, like the calculation you need to make in order to know when you can start pitching. I show you how to do a really simple media kit and how to put together that to be attractive to sponsors, and then how to actually pitch sponsors. I share my exact emails that I use, so swipe files that you can use, plug and play, and have them work for you to start getting money for your show. So that is the course itself. Okay, so this is the actual 8-module course inside of Podcast Moguls. That's part 1 of the program. Part 2 is our private Facebook community. So that's where we share things like the earlier screen grab I shared below of someone who just crossed their 1,000 downloads. Here is another screenshot from when Felicia of the Trill MBA podcast hit number 53 in iTunes careers. She says, I'm coming for the top 200 in overall business next. I have never seen my podcast tile in the ranks until today. You guys, what God does for one, he does for the next. Keep grinding. Happy Friday. We got this. Thanks, Nikayla. So every day people are sharing their wins, and when they share their challenges, we get in there and we help them as well. And I'm in there helping and answering. So yes, you have direct access to getting responses from me. Plus, in addition to the modules and the course itself, so the on-demand course you can access as soon as you join tonight if you want to. And then we have the community again. You join tonight, you jump in, access anytime you want to. And then the coaching, we have live coaching calls once a month, every 3rd Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make it, we record all of them. You can submit your questions in advance. I'll still answer it live and you can watch the replay. So we meet monthly for video group coaching calls. So unlike this, where it's just me talking at you, we're all in Zoom together and you're able to get your challenges workshop. Like just yesterday, we had our November call and we went through things like they sent me the link to their lead magnet or their freebie, to grow their email list. And I helped in real time to give them edits of what they need to do to make it stronger. So these are the things that we do in our live coaching call. Like it's your opportunity to get your monthly coaching from me and get feedback to get stronger. We also have special coaching calls where I bring in an expert. So in this case, I brought in my editor and he was able to answer even more specific and granular editing questions to help everyone who, with anything they struggle with editing their show, so your show can sound as professional as possible. So here's just a taste of some of your fellow moguls. This is Shirley McAlpine. She's got Drive Podcast, hit business podcast that has been on many charts, many lists of top business podcasts for women and top business podcasts in general. And Shirley, when she joined Podcast Moguls, already had a podcast and she was able to grow her show. So she shares that I only started implementing her marketing strategies about 3 months ago, and this is what I found. I had at that point 25,000 downloads, and in the last 3 months, I'm now at 46,000 downloads. Her strategy absolutely works. So that's almost like doubling your downloads in 3 months. So imagine like joining this program. You could start from 0, you could do a slow crawl, or you could come out the gate having everything you need and coming out the gate strong, shooting up the charts. That's what I want for you. This is Fritz Charles of the Coin Gamma podcast. So here's another example of what I mean with you can use podcasting to do whatever you want to do. You can use it as a platform to grow your brand, grow your profile. It's really like a new resume. This is something that speaks for you when you're not even there. People are constantly listening to your podcast, even when you take a break. So Fritz shares that he says, I was able to speak at over 5 conferences last year, even being flown in internationally to speak at conferences. It all came because of the podcast. How amazing is that to get a call out the blue from someone who wants to fly you out internationally to speak at a conference because they discovered your podcast? That's exactly what happened to him. So these are some of the unexpected ways in which podcasting will change your life, will change your career, will change your revenue earning potential. So just to remind you a little bit of what you're getting and let you know a little bit more about the pricing. So you're getting the 8-module course plus monthly live coaching sessions from me. That in and of itself is a $4,000 value because you're getting 4 live coaching sessions at minimum, but truth be told, you can join anytime. I may change that in the future, but right now, if you're a mogul for life. So if you had a one-on-one session, that's at least $1,000, and you're getting 4 of those group calls with me. So plus you're getting lifetime community access, like mogul for life. Again, as long as the program exists, you have access. So I know people who charge $197 a month monthly for their Facebook groups, and it's not a lifetime. Like, you pay that year after year if you continue to stay in the community. So that in and of itself is a $2,300, $64 value. Plus you're getting all of my sponsorship pitch letters and my media kits. You guys know that I went to a sponsorship intensive just to learn about sponsorship, and that alone was $1,197, but that is included inside of Podcast Moguls. Plus you're getting my guest pitch template. So those are the emails I use, the format, the sequence to land the guests that I land. And by itself, those are market value $597. Plus, when you invest, you also get the Master the Gram program. So that by itself, it's my intensive focus program all about building an engaged audience on Instagram. If you buy that alone, it's $297. You join Podcast Moguls, that's included, and that is included within the cost of Podcast Moguls. So you're getting all of this, right? Plus you're getting the Goal Getter Action Plan, which is my side hustle productivity blueprint, okay? That is the schedule, the system that I use to be able to do my podcast on the side. And I want you guys to have that because you really need to be able to structure your time to do this podcast. And I want you to understand a system that will work. So again, you're getting the 8-module course, you're getting the live coaching sessions, you're getting lifetime community access, you're getting all of my sponsorship pitch letters and media kits, plus my guest pitch templates, plus Master the Gram, plus the Goal Getter Action Plan. And that totals up to a value of $8,553, okay? So your option for joining is obviously not $8,000. You have 2 options. So right now the course is on sale. It is a special online promotional price. So option 1 is $997, or you can do 4 monthly payments of $297. If you choose the pay in full price, there are some pay in full bonuses that I'll share with you in a moment. And you guys can go over right now to sidehustlepro.co/podcast moguls to start joining. Let us know when you join, and I want to share with you the bonuses next. And Joanna, if you could put that in the chat. So Carolyn says, the big question, what is the cost? That is the cost. All right. And I want to let you guys know that this cost is actually going away. So this will be like, this year will be the last year you ever see Podcast Moguls for this price. And there are a few reasons for that I'll share with you in Q&A, mainly because this course is, like I said, valued at $8,553. I pack a lot of value into this, and I'm getting ready to add even more because, like I said, I've been doing YouTube. I started doing YouTube in 2021. I have so much more to add. And so with that, the price will be going up, but I want to make sure that I give everyone notice. You have a heads up that this online promotional pricing will be going away. So the doors are now open for Podcast Moguls. I know that when you start thinking about making investments in your business, that there's a thought, you need some time to like frame and think through if this is worth the price, if this is valuable to you. And so I want to share with you the equation that I always use. This is the equation I used when I was getting ready to do that 2-day sponsorship intensive. So I asked myself, like, would it be worth it to me if I did X? And so would it be worth it to you if Podcast Moguls helped you elevate your brand and land brand partnerships, for example? So would getting approached with media opportunities be worth it to you? Yes. Then I definitely recommend you come on over to sidehustlepro.co/podcast moguls. This is what happened as a result of me elevating my personal brand with podcasting, by the way. I was featured on the Today Show. This is August 2019. I was brought in as the Passion to Paycheck side hustle expert. I did not pitch the Today Show. I don't have a PR person. They came to me because they discovered Side Hustle Pro just by doing a Google search. And so I teach you how to make sure that your podcast and brand is being represented for your topic. And so that is priceless. Like you can't put a price on getting national broadcast television coverage. So if that's something that would be interesting to you, then I definitely recommend you come over to sidehustlepro.co/Podcast Moguls. And again, the price of the one-time payment, I see your question, Shayna, is $9.97, okay? And then 4 payments of $297 if you do the 4-payment plan. So here's what happened to Tolu of the UI Narrative podcast. So Tolu started out in this masterclass, just like you guys, came to the masterclass, decided to invest in herself, joined Podcast Moguls. She started out with no clue of what her podcast would be. She had a couple of ideas. She went through the Refine Your Topic lessons, and she settled on making a podcast about user interface and interviewing people of color who work in the UI world. So she launched her show, and now she has sponsorship from Google. So how would you like to go from starting with just an idea, or, starting with just the bare bones, and then really solidifying your show, solidifying your pathway to growth, to monetization, and being able to have these opportunities? So that's what I mean by really asking yourself these questions of like, what do I want to do? And how do I plan to get there? And what's a strategic way for me to get there? So that's how you decide if something will be worth it to you. So would it be worth it to you also if Podcast Moguls helps you land features in magazines? So that will increase your downloads for sure. It will increase your reach. I actually was just featured in a magazine, Millie Magazine. Again, came to me from a casting agent finding me, and she actually found me through the show. So I interviewed one of her friends, and she was going through her friend's profile just to catch up on what she was up to. She saw that she was interviewed on this podcast, had never heard of the podcast, but was immediately gravitated to the title, listened to the episode, said, oh my God, like this woman is doing this Side Hustle Pro content. She needs to be the next cover of Millie Magazine. And that is how that all came to be. So if you're wondering the backstory behind that, that's how that came to be. So shout out to Alicia, shout out to Side Hustle Pro, shout out to podcasting. All right. So if increasing your downloads, increasing your reach would be worth it to you, and definitely come on over to sidehustlepro.co/Podcast Moguls. Definitely come on down and let me teach you. Because let me tell you guys, like, the end of the year plus into 2023, it's going to be amazing. Like I have some big plans for you guys. I have some huge plans for Podcast Moguls and how we're going to turn it up. I'm really, really, really like so committed to just making sure more of our voices are represented. All right. So here's what happened to Shayla of the Black Girls Wine podcast. So Shayla has been featured in Black Enterprise, all about her podcast, and also in the Richmond Times Dispatch as well. Her local, and it's national, but she's from Richmond, so she was featured there. And I just love her podcast name, by the way, and her entire brand. So again, this is what's possible with really investing in yourself, taking podcasting seriously. But guys, as you know, the only way to learn is through taking that action. We can do as many of these free webinars as we can. And, you can do as much data collection on your own and DIY as you can. But at some point, when you want to take podcasting seriously, you have to approach it from a serious perspective of investing in an actual course. It's kind of like anything you get a certification in, a degree in. When you're ready to truly commit to this, you have to invest in that pathway. So in order to reward you for investing in yourself tonight, I have some painful fast action bonuses. And I want to give you guys these again, because number one, thank you for being here. And also thank you for staying till the end. And, thank you in advance for joining and being a part of the program. I can't wait to work with you. So here are the painful bonuses, you guys. Number one is my pitch email. I love this gift. Number one is my pitch email that landed me my first $4,000 in sponsorship. So I'll send you the exact codes email that I sent. So if you're nervous about sending your first email to a sponsor, just, use this, amend it, make it curated for your taste and for your needs, okay? Number two, the second bonus is the 5-day branding blitz. So these are the steps that I use leading up to launching my show. Side Hustle Pro launched first week out, top 10 in marketing on the left, you see that. Number 37 in business on the right, you see that. And by the way, can you see, I don't know if you remember in the beginning, I shared with you one of the first people I invested in a program from was Amy Porterfield. Look at my show right next to Amy's, coming out the gate with my launch. Like, how amazing is that? So here's my 5-day branding blitz as a pay in full bonus. So you can take these steps to launch your show as well. And then third bonus, my pitch email to Apple that landed me in New and Noteworthy. So if you have a podcast and you want it to be featured in the podcast apps so that more people can see it and learn about it, maybe the shows that are featured are shows that are on major networks. So when I was at NPR, I was used to seeing NPR shows there. But I sent, again, a cold email, didn't know anyone, cold email, started on LinkedIn, was able to move it over to email. And that email landed me in the New and Noteworthy section on Apple Podcasts. And then finally, I'm going to share with you my pitch email that landed me my first international speaking engagement in Barbados. So like Fritz, I was flown out to speak internationally, made it a vacation on top of it. And it was just amazing. And it all came because of the podcast, because of the authority I was able to command by launching this platform. So with podcasting, you're basically giving yourself a stage. Like, you're not waiting for anyone to give you a microphone and say, here, what do you think? You're giving yourself a stage, and that is powerful. All right. So head over to sidehustlepro.co/podcast moguls. I just have a few more things to share before we get into Q&A. So please make sure to stick around for Q&A. And my live replay viewers, let me see. Welcome, Shayna. Woo, signed up. Let's go. Welcome, Tiffany. All right. I can't wait to work with you guys. Yes, paid in full. All right. Your paid in full bonuses are coming to you shortly after this. So before we get into Q&A, I want to share with you the power of Podcast Moguls. I can talk till I'm blue in the face. About this. Like, I'm a tongue twisted right now because of how passionate I am about it. But really, I want you to know that, there are real people, real humans that are seeing the power reflected in their own lives for their own podcast after joining. So this is what Dr. Alicia Franklin, the host of the Research Her podcast, had to say. She shared this shortly after joining the program. So she shared that, I'm sharing my growth chart to show the power of this program. I started podcasting in November. I had no clue what in the world I was doing, nor how to market the episodes. I just thought the people were going to show up. How many of you thought that? She said, I obsessed over the course and I relaunched the podcast within a month of joining the program with so much more vision, thanks to Nikayla. I went from hundreds of downloads to thousands. Thank you, Nikayla. So that, again, is what I want for you guys. I want you to see like how you are holding yourself back. You have amazing information, amazing content. And because you just don't know what you don't know, you're limiting your show. And I don't want you to limit your show and your reach. This is also what happened to Nia of the Dreams of Black Wall Street podcast. So it was originally called Black Wall Street 1921 when she launched. She said nearly 2 weeks ago, again, this was shortly after she launched. She said nearly 2 weeks ago, my podcast, which chronicles the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921, passed 100,000 downloads. 100,000 downloads in just 4 months. You guys, You guys, she said, when I started this project, I didn't know how it would be received because let's face it, talking about race in America, let alone the worst incident of racial violence in America is not easy. Now, more and more people are willing to confront this. And then she said the popularity of her podcast prompted BBC News to reach out to her, interview her, and produce a 4-minute short video with her narrating the story of the Tulsa Race Massacre. So for any of you who are like, oh, my topic is too niche, or my topic is too controversial, or this or that, like, remember that if this is something that will be impactful for others, do it, okay? Do it, and you just do it well. So Nia actually joined the program with a completely different podcast. Completely different, like it was already out in the world and everything. But after going through the program, and again, the refine your topic, really getting to the bottom of not only what she wanted to talk about long-term, but also who her perfect listener was, she was able to launch a completely different podcast and look at the impact she's had. So again, if you're interested in this, make sure you're lining up at sidehustlepro.co/podcast moguls. Blunt Blowing Mama, I'll tell you a little bit more about Shanitria. You'll see her on the registration page, but she essentially shared this screenshot unprompted. I took a screenshot of what she shared unprompted in her IG story when I was getting ready to have our masterclass. And she shared that Side Hustle Pro is an amazing podcast coach. As someone who is one of her Podcast Mogul students, I can truly say she helped me get Blunt Blowing Mama podcast off the ground and grow BBM's IG page. I only had 3K followers when I started her program, and through her techniques, I've grown organically to over 21,000 engaged followers. Because of Podcast Moguls, I was able to find my tribe. And she even gave me helpful advice when I started a BBM clothing line too. She really knows her stuff. And if you really want to build a successful podcast, then her Podcast Moguls program is worth the investment. So again, people who are actually in the program are saying this, not just me. So here are your options. Again, pay in full, $9.97, get the pay in full bonuses. Option 2, the 4 monthly payments of $297. And this price does go away on Friday, November 25th. Yes, Black Friday at 12 p.m. Again, the price of this course is going back up, and it's going to stay there. It's no more online special pricing after this year. So remember, when you pay tonight, you do qualify for the pay in full bonuses, and you can join and see all of this again at sidehustlepro.co/podcast moguls. Just a reminder of the total value, y'all. Okay, thank you for staying until the end. Stick around for Q&A. We're about to get into Q&A. I also want to share the code Hustle Pro so you can get the rest of this month and all of next month free hosting your podcast on Libsyn. Those of you who have questions, make sure that you drop it in Q&A. Joanna on my team is going to be compiling all of those for me so I can answer them one by one next. And all right, let's jump into this. So this was just a reminder again of what you're getting. And then reminder of what the bonuses are: my pitch email that landed me my first $4,000 in sponsorship, my 5-day branding blitz, my pitch email to Apple that landed me in New and Noteworthy, my pitch email that landed me my first international speaking engagement in Barbados. All right, let's do this, you guys. I am going to, let's see how I do this. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a little bit. Hold on. I'm going to stop sharing for a little bit so that I can never mind. I'm going to keep sharing. And then we're about to get into Q&A. All right, you guys. Oh, here we go. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing for a little bit. The bonuses are when you pay in full. When you pay in full. Okay, so Chef Ra is not just tonight, but when you pay in full. Sorry for any confusion there. All right. For those of you who are watching on the replay, we're about to wrap up, and you guys can reach out to me with any questions at hi@sidehustlepro.co. Everyone else stick around. I'm just going to stop the recording part here. Okay, so let's stop the recording. All right.